January 23rd, 2020, Joe here at Simple Life Show, where the simplest answers are usually the best. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all the good social media stuff because the rational voices need to remain in the forefront where they belong, where they always belong. Social media is always taking its root hold in silencing those who are not part of either side, who simply want to have a rational discussion about what's happening in this country and, in fact, the world. What I really want to talk about today, the topic of today, is where is all this hatred coming from? Where is the division really happening? And I don't really think it's about Trump. I don't think it's about the administration. We all remember a lot of the threats that people have made against the president, the threats that people have made against the First Lady and against Barron Trump and all the other children and all that other kind of stuff. It's very disgusting. We don't like it when these things happen, obviously. But there are some people that really, truly are dug in deeply. They are like the weed that has gained a foothold in this what was once a civil society. And the weeds are growing day by day. And the more that there are weeds in this garden that used to be a civil society, it's gonna threaten to take over the whole thing and ruin the entire landscape. So let's just kind of take a look back at some of the things that have been happening over the past 3 years. It's not going to be all inclusive because we would be here all day.
They say was a plot to kill Donald Trump. A man driving across state lines, showing up at a rally in Las Vegas, and reaching for an officer's gun. ABC News obtaining a federal complaint. Authorities say that man told the officer he was there to get Trump's autograph, and that's when he tried to get the gun.
All the U.S. senators ought to vote yes. Okay. I think they should vote yes, and if they don't, we can put them to the guillotine.
What do you mean?
The guillotine, you know what that is?
Like the guillotine?
Yeah,
like
chop off their head. Exactly.
Wait, Trump gets his head chopped off, or the senators that voted no?
Yeah, I think Trump ought to get his head chopped off, and all the senators who vote no, too, yeah.
16 January 2017, and this is a video message per prayer. I was requested to type this in and post it. Yes, I'll be at the review stand at the inauguration, and I'm going to kill President Trump. President-elect Trump today. What are you going to do about it?
Broward County man under arrest, accused of threatening to kill President Trump. Court records say it was in response to the killing of Iran's top military commander.
This is the last time an actor assassinated a president. I want to clarify, I'm not an actor. I lie for a living.
Just like Donald.
However, it's been a while. And maybe it's time.
That's rapper Snoop Dogg pulling the trigger on a toy gun aimed at a clown dressed as President Donald Trump. His new music video for the song Lavender was released over the weekend. It's not the first time rap videos have been a little risque, but Snoop Dogg wields a lot of influence.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
That's just a small smattering. I'm sure we can all remember those things when they happened. Very cringeworthy. They haven't really stopped. They haven't really stopped at all. This is just kind of going on and on and on. And it seems like we have become numb to these things when they happen. People making threats on the president, kind of joking around that they want to, they want to cause harm to the president. I'm not going to say the K word because then that will just cause a whole bunch of algorithms to go into place, and then this video will probably be taken down anyway. I have to really watch what I say on social media. It seems like a lot of people really don't have to worry about what they say, especially when they talk about threats on the president. Now, I'm not going to also say that there aren't repercussions when people make threats against the president. I don't care who the president is. I mean, if someone made threats to the next president, if it's not Trump, if people made threats against Obama or any other president for that matter. I think that it should be taken very seriously. These are the things that we do not, in a civil society, should condone. But now we are condoning these types of things. It's very sick. The kind of, how much we have backslidden as a society when it comes to these things, and how much we have that we're willing to condone now when it comes to that. So there have been several threats made against the Trump per day. The Secret Service says this was back in 2017. It hasn't stopped. This is just something that happens. It's very routine, apparently, in the White House for people to just threaten the life of the president, and that's just a daily occurrence. Here from the Raw story, Trump has lived the life of a crook and will die a crook. These are the type of articles that we see on a daily basis all the time here when we're talking about the president and the first lady and his administration as a whole. People are just so fed up, I guess, with all of the wrong and the horrible things that Trump has done, which really isn't true. I do not agree with some of the things that Trump has done, but for the most part, Trump has been okay. As a president, he hasn't really messed a lot of stuff up. In fact, he has done a lot of great things, opening up dialogue with a lot of countries that we didn't have dialogue with, including North Korea. There's a lot of things that people have just not given Trump his due credit on. He's not the most well-polished speaker, obviously. He's not the very nicest person. But people voted for Trump for a very particular reason. It's because we needed someone to really shake things up in Washington. This isn't really a story or a show about Trump himself or any other president for that matter. It's about the vitriol and the hatred and where it's really coming from. We could say that it's coming from mass media, and I could say that there's a lot that can be said about that. I think mass media has a way of shaping opinion that it hasn't had in a long time. Of course, now we're living in the age of fake news, where the news cycle changes, almost every single hour. It used to be a 24-hour news cycle. Now it's every hour, and there's always something new and exciting, and most of the time negative to really talk about when it comes to this presidency, and not so much things are really happening in the world that we need to be discussing. It's just feeding that monster, that garbage dumpster fire. That is this whole media news cycle that we're living in right now. And I was really thinking about this. I'm like, well, what is really causing this? Because we could look at all of the different things that people have said about the president. Just for instance, here, this was from a while ago here, from back in 2017, the Maine Democrat, who is Scott Hammond, who was a Maine Democrat. He did not seek re-election in 2018, and this is why. If you try to look for any of these videos on Scott Hammond, I tried to look to get some backdrop video of him saying certain things, but conveniently, YouTube and other social media and Google have just erased all of it conveniently. That we see this over and over when a Democrat or someone threatens the life of the president, or they say something monumentally stupid. It just gets deleted from social media. And we all know why this is. It's because the mass media wants to feed one side and not the other. So the Maine Democrat threatens Trump in profanity-laced Facebook comment. This was back in 2017. It used to be a well-known one. I think most people have forgotten about this. But I'll read a little smattering of what he said. Trump is a joke, and anyone who doesn't have their heads up their asses understand that, Hanneman said. 100% of intelligent Americans agree that Trump is a complete loser, but go back to cleaning to your guns because you're afraid. And he uses the P word. See, it's not only Trump supporters who can talk like complete a-holes, as long as that's what's coming out of that side. Then I'll match you dumb Fs. Word for word, he said. Immediately following was the threat that concluded his post. Trump is a half-term president at most, especially if I get within 10 feet of that P word. I'm not going to say these words because then it'll start triggering algorithms. I should not really care, but I really want people to hear what I have to say, and I want to hear what you have to say. Hammond said that Trump is an admitted rapist, and asked whether you would be okay with leaving him alone in a room with your wife and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, he definitely threatened the life of the president. He, there's no mixing words when it comes to, hey, if you come within 10 feet of me, you're going to be a half-term president. What does that mean? That means that you want to cause lethal harm to the commander-in-chief. Where have we come as a nation where this type of attitude and this type of vitriol and this type of rhetoric is just acceptable? Now, he didn't really get too much out of that. Obviously, now there was a lot of people that were upset about it, and he decided not to run again. I'm assuming this had something to do with this, but this is a perfect example of these people who are in positions of power, no doubt, who are advocating for this type of stuff. Remember when Maxine Waters says, you need to get up in their face. You need to go to their places of business when they're pumping their gas, and you need to tell them that they are not welcome. Okay, they want to call Republicans and conservatives and other rational people, libertarians, they want to call them Nazis. But that I can't think of a better way to describe what a Nazi would say, that you're not welcome. That's what the Nazis said to the Jews, right? They weren't welcome in Germany anymore. That's why they got rid of them one way or the other, right? I think this is what they are trying to do with the conservative movement and the rational movement and the libertarian movement. They are all scum to the Democrats. They have their own agenda, and we know this. But underlying that agenda is a vitriol hatred that is being unleashed. And we're gonna be discussing at least a little bit of why this is. Remember when I don't have a clip of this, but remember when Oprah was talking about, we just need for all of the old people to just die. We need for them to die so we can progress as a nation, and then things will change, right? So obviously this issue, or this what's going on right now in the Senate, the trial, we all know that. I'm not going to talk about it. Obviously, it's a very somber moment, right? But remember when Nancy Pelosi was actually signing all this stuff. She had a bit of grin on her face. She was handing out pins. Let's take a look at that and kind of take a step back over the last few days. Notice how she is handing out, well, we'll get to that in the next video, but notice how she is using every single pen there to write every single letter of her name. I mean, how narcissist and how much of a cynic can you possibly be to do that sort of thing? Just sign it, right? It's a somber moment. It's almost like if a warden or a governor or something, it's almost like a governor was relishing signing a death warrant. Just imagine that for a moment. If a governor was signing the death warrant of a family member of yours who happened to be on death row, unfortunately, and they were having commemorative pins when they were signing the death warrant and signing each letter of their name, giggling the whole way. What would we say at that moment about our society? Would it be a little bit more clear to people on what was really going on in society? It wasn't just that, okay? She actually handed the pins out afterwards. One for myself, indeed, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I can't think of one person to kind of indict when it comes to all this, and who's really feeding the vitriol the most. I think honestly, it's if I had to choose, it would probably be Hollywood in general, the mass media in general. I think that Nancy Pelosi is another spearhead, another figurehead when it comes to this vitriol. And we have so many examples of the Democrats who are relishing certain moments that are supposed to be somber, that are supposed to be serious. They are relishing in the discord that they have woven into the fabric of this society. We see this over and over. We see this with Ilhan Omar here in the now infamous giggling episode.
And also the vote for Barbara Lee's amendment. But I think that the point of that is that is the same war that we're dealing with today. We never solved any problems with AUMF. We left 4,000 plus, maybe 4,400 dead, and over 60,000 who came back injured in some form. And the war never ended. As I recall the language in AUMF, it deals with hostilities in Iraq. It doesn't deal.
So she can't stop laughing. I wonder what was so funny at that point where she really just didn't care about what was going on. I mean, I guess it's just one big joke to Ilhan Omar. And obviously, when we're talking about impeachment, when we're talking about the story that is coming out of not only the mass media, but specifically from the Democrats themselves, when they said, hey, we're not trying to impeach the president. We're not the ones that caused all this stuff. We haven't wanted to impeach the president since day one. Yes, of course they have. And the best clip I could come up with is the one that everyone knows by now. You all know it by heart.
Please don't win. And I said, baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach them.
That's all to be said about the Democrats. That's all that can be said about the liberal agenda right now and what they have been wanting to do and what they have been seething about over the past 3 years. They have been doing this. They have been laying down the groundworks for this impeachment bit by bit, piece by piece, just looking for the right opportunity. They have to strike while the iron's hot, as Nancy Pelosi has said previously. She has been on stage. They have been taking news conferences, taking breaks, having secret meetings and all this kind of stuff. We all know the story. It's nothing new. But when we're talking about Hollywood, just putting the Democrats in Congress to the side for a moment, when we're talking about Hollywood and how influential they are, people like Snoop Dogg, people like Madonna and all those others that are so influential in our society, that people are taking literally their marching orders from these celebrities. And that's why we see other people who are saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to be famous. We have this idea in our society that we become so bored with our lives that we have to become famous. We have to be in the limelight. We have to be adored. We have to be loved. And what better way to be loved than to be hated? Right? Isn't that such a weird thing? I think that's why we see so many mass killings right now. We have so many shootings. People have this need to be loved and adored or hated, one or the other. To them, it might be the same thing. But that's really getting to the point and the main point of what I'm trying to say in this video. I know I take a while getting around to the main point, but my main point is this, that we have a problem in the society where people are turning to hatred. They're turning to their inner animalistic type of parts of our brains that's being let loose, not only through the mainstream media, but through Hollywood, the things that we're exposed to, this kind of consumerism, materialistic type of society that has been forming and evolving over the past 100 years, ever since the Industrial Revolution. And now we are living in a world of high technology, instant gratification, instant communication, And this is something that I think is a natural result. Even the founding fathers knew this was going to be an issue. Here recently during the the Golden Globes, Ricky Gervais was up on the podium saying whatever he wants to say. If you're not familiar with Ricky Gervais, he's a very outspoken comedian. I wouldn't call him a conservative or anything like that. I would consider him middle of the road, maybe just a rational person that likes to think about stuff. I don't agree with everything he says, and obviously we don't have the same points of view on everything. But if you don't remember what he said, or if you haven't seen it, I think this really sums it up when it comes to Hollywood and their opinions on really anything.
If you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and...
That pretty much sums it up. Just like pretty much everything. Anytime I show a video, it pretty much sums up what I'm trying to say. And Ricky Gervais, obviously that was just a small clip of what he was saying. He was throwing everybody under the bus, making fun of everybody, as he always does. But Hollywood doesn't know anything about the real world. Yes, a lot of Hollywood stars, they came from nothing. There's a lot of them, but a lot of them really were born into this type of, environment. They were born into the Hollywood environment, the acting environment, the telling lies for a living, as Johnny Depp says, before he threatened the president. But yeah, it's, Hollywood is not really known for its morals. It's not known for that. But I always find it very ironic when Hollywood wants to talk about what is moral and what is upright and what is good and correct and the thing to do as a law-abiding citizen and stuff like that. Hollywood really can't say anything about that, especially when it comes to Harvey Weinstein, especially when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein and all that stuff. We know Epstein didn't kill himself. We know this. There's so much evidence now coming out that there was. I mean, there's so much. I mean, the tapes are missing. The guards. Where were the guards? I mean, just so many just awesome coincidences happening all at the right moment for a person that had so much information on so many elite when it came to this whole pedophile movement. We know that Hollywood is completely wrapped up and has completely covered up a lot of these pedophile accusations, and I believe it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's almost like Area 51. They'll tell you just a little bit about what's going on there, and they might be telling the truth about some things, but the vast majority, the cream of the crop, the actual the iceberg that sits underneath the cold ocean, is something that we'll probably never know. And I believe Epstein had a lot of that stuff, and he was just he wanted to make a deal. And if you were in a position like him, if you were the sicko like he was, you'd probably be making some sort of deal too. So going back to a lot of these threats against the president, I had come up with a few things. The CEO, this Matt Harrigan, is the CEO of Packet Sled. I don't even know what that is. This was back, I guess, in 2016 when Trump was still running against other Republican candidates. These are some of the tweets that he said during this time. Of course, I believe that he was sacked because of this, no doubt. Of course, Matt Harrigan said, "Nope, getting a sniper rifle and perching myself where it counts. Find a bedroom in the White House that suits you, MFer. I'll find you." And then, of course, he says, "I'm going to murder the president-elect." And then he says, "Bring it, Secret Service." This is a CEO of an American company. And this is also him saying, in no uncertain terms, F off, or F you, America. Seriously, F off. This is someone that threw away his entire career because he was angry. He was angry because the wrong person got elected. I know there was a lot of people upset when Obama got elected. I know there were some people out there that said some things as well. But Obama got elected twice, and this country didn't fall apart for the most part as far as, civility. I think most people were still civil with each other. I voted for Obama twice. I had no problems telling people that I voted for Obama. I didn't have Republicans coming after me with bats. I didn't have egg thrown on my face. I didn't have cinder blocks and rocks thrown at my house. I didn't have swastikas and all kinds of stuff written all over my house. None of those things happened. None of them. But if you support Trump, if you support this administration, and at least most of the policies that Trump wants to get done, if you really just look at some of these policies, they're not that bad. Some of them are bad. Some of them I don't agree with. But that's for the people to determine. That is why we have a House of Representatives. That's why we have a Senate. That's why we have so many different powers in this government to prevent really, really bad ideas from seeing the light of day. And people keep forgetting that. We can have a complete lunatic in office, right? And odds are that none of his ideas or her ideas, if they're a lunatic, will ever see the light of day, and they'll probably be impeached anyway. And it probably will be a very short presidency. That's the beauty of what the founders actually put into our governing system. So this was Scott Hanneman that we had just discussed him. We see here he used to be a representative of the 31st District of Maine. Of course, he is no longer in government, thank God. So I actually looked at some of the... Now, this is something that actually was about the Founding Fathers and more specifically about Hobbesian, I think it's called Hobbesian warfare. So when you want to look at Hobbesian, what Hobbesian is that it was 16th century political theorist, and in fact, the Founding Fathers took a lot of Thomas Hobbs' ideas when they were basically forming the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and a new form of government. So the 16th century political theorist, philosopher, and scientist Thomas Hobbs left a stark warning to succeeding generations. Strong central authority is the necessary basis for government. In several influential works of legal, political, psychological, and philosophical theory, Hobbes' view of society and its leaders was founded on pessimism. He saw people as weak and selfish, and thus in constant need of the governance that would save them from destruction. These ideas profoundly affected the Federalists during the early formation of U.S. law. The law is formed on pessimism, the fact that we're all animals. Listen to what Thomas Hobbs is saying. The Federalists turned to Hobbes' work for justification for passage of the U.S. Constitution, as well as for intellectual support for their own movement in the years following that passage. Today, Hobbes is read not only for his lasting contributions to political legal theory in general, but for the ideas that help shape U.S. history. We have to understand what the founders were really thinking. They weren't just thinking about a new world. They weren't thinking about a new governance. They were highly considering the state of humanity and the predispositions of people to become violent. They were thinking about these things, and they turned to Thomas Hobbes for this. Hobbes was a supreme pessimist. To him, people were inherently selfish. They struggle constantly against one another for survival. The life of man, he wrote in his masterwork Leviathan, is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Thus, people could not survive on their own in the state of nature. This foundation led him to the theory of the law. Only by submitting to the protection of a sovereign power could individuals avoid constant anarchy and war. The sovereign's authority would have to be absolute. Law derived from this authority rather than from objective truth, which he argued did not exist. It did not exist. All citizens of the state were morally bound to follow the sovereign's authority. The state is master. Otherwise, law could not function. Hobbes chose Leviathan, a large sea animal, to represent the state, and he maintained that, like a whale, the state could only be guided by one intelligence: its sovereigns, its state. The state power and the state rules. Thomas Hobbes was a pessimist. Thomas Hobbes believed in state power. The founders look to Thomas Hobbs for a lot of guidance, because even they, the founders who founded this country, were afraid what would happen if there was fractions within the political parties. They were afraid of what would happen with the breakdown of the sovereign state. The founders understood the potentially disruptive power of a faction within the Democratic Republic. They took seriously the philosopher Thomas Hobbs' pejorative characterization of fraction or faction as representing a city within a city, an enemy within the walls. Accordingly, they sought to constrain the political phenomenon that Adam Smith described as a clamorous opportunity of partial interest to transfer state power into a weapon of choice for waging neo-Hobbesian warfare. What are we seeing right now? We are seeing something that we have never seen before. We are seeing the type of vitriol, the type of anger, the type of animalistic type of aggression that resides in all of us as human beings. It's in all of us. It's natural. It's human. It is what has kept us alive for so long. But it's through our tempered state. It's through our love and of God and our Creator, who has tampered down this and made us civil and has made us neighbors with each other. That we can talk with each other and we can discuss these things and we can be friends with each other even though we may not agree. Thomas Hobbs disagrees with that whole thing. He does not believe in objective truth. He does not believe in objective morality. He believes that the selfishness of human people will eventually take over. And I believe that he is right and wrong. I believe that he's right because we do have this animalistic type of anger. We want to rage against the machine. We want to rage against things that we see that's injustice in this world. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is very healthy to rage against the machine because we as humans are meant to be free. Please understand this is where this is coming from. Our animalistic type of our aggression towards the type of cells that have been placed over us is why we are so angry. It's all coming from one place, no matter what side we're coming from. This anger is coming out. It has been coming out for a long time. I believe it started off with, probably all the way back to probably the first Bush, Herbert Walker Bush. And going forward, we have seen a lot of this anger being transformed into the manifestations that we see right now. We see it with Hollywood threatening to kill the president. We have people who are actually attempting to murder others just simply because they have a different point of view. He goes further by saying factions subvert government, renders laws impotent, and beget the fiercest animosities among men of the same nation who ought to give mutual assistance and protection to each other. It's brother versus brother. It's another civil war, right? This is what they were talking about. And what we should render the founders of parties more odious is the difficulty in expiating these weeds that once they have taken root in any state, they are impossible to get rid of. Yes, the philosopher Jacques Rousseau complimented Hume. Let us suppose now a state in which the social bond has begun to wear thin. Okay, let's suppose this. We see this now. They're talking about today. It has, we assume, entered upon its decline. Particular interests have begun to make themselves felt in it. The narrow association to affect decisions of the wider group, the common interest in such a state is clouded over and encounters opposition. Votes cease to be unanimous. The general will is no longer the will of everyone. They knew what they were talking about. Hundreds of years ago, they have predicted this to happen today in 2020. They were very smart people. We don't have very smart people anymore, not like there was hundreds of years ago, because they have been predicting this, and they have predicted what has been going on right now in front of our faces. We are going through a type of revelation, a type of uncovering, a type of manifestation and of evolution of hatred, and this animalistic hatred that evolved towards what other types of things that we can focus it on. And it's been focused on Trump. Unfortunately, it has. People don't hate Trump. People are tired of being run by the state, and they have unwillingly and unknowingly been turned into the pawns that is forwarding this idea that the state is the only thing that can control the animal that Thomas Hobbs was talking about. We have to understand that we do have this animal instinct in each of us, in you, in me. We are all fearful of the future. We are all fearful of a state run amok. But we need to turn that into something that is more constructive. We have to turn that into better ideas rather than just rampant hatred, because that accomplishes nothing. We know this. All it does is feed itself. All it does is throw more gas on that dumpster fire. And they were pretty clear when they said that once these weeds, they have taken root in our society, that it's going to be almost impossible to take them out. So I'm going to leave you with that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all that good social media stuff to help us out. If you like anything of what I'm talking about, if you have connected with anything I said, please don't forget to share and subscribe. I would be greatly honored if you did. I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.